In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Penlux Masterpiece Grande Snowflake Fountain Pen. I'll go over the specs, I will do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this pen coming up. Blake here with Blake's Broadcast. On this channel, I review fountain pens, paper, and ink, and as always, I put links in the show notes in the description below. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, it really helps out my channel. Alright, let's get on with the review. Here we have the Penlux Masterpiece Grande Snowflake. This is a limited edition model. Now, Penlux is a pen brand that is new to me. It's not one that's really been on my radar too much, but I saw them at Penchetta in Scottsdale and they loaned me this pen for this review. It's quite a good looking pen. These are pens that are distributed by Itoya, which is the US distributor for Sailor and Tasha. So knowing that those two brands are quite high quality, I think it's interesting to see a kind of a lower priced offering. Now, Penlux is a Taiwanese company, and they have been sort of an OEM manufacturer for other pen companies since 1999. And in 2015, so 10 years ago, they launched their own pen brand called Penlux. Now, this is part of their Masterpiece line, and this is the Grande, which is their biggest size. These are available, I believe, in gold nibs. Here I have a steel number 6 JoWo nib, and the retail price is $240. And overall, I think these pens have a really nice look to them. The proportions are very, very similar to a Mont Blanc 149. Now, I do think the Masterpiece name is maybe not ideal because this Mont Blanc, the most famous Mont Blanc pen line, is called the Meisterstück, which means masterpiece in German. And actually, I've had 136 that was made for the US market, and instead of saying Meisterstück on the cap band, it said masterpiece. So it's not really too far-fetched to suspect that they're getting some inspiration from Mont Blanc. The proportions are extremely, extremely similar. The Mont Blanc tapers more towards the tail and the cap, but otherwise they're very, very similar in size. The Mont Blanc, of course, does have a larger number 9 nib versus a number 6 nib. The Penlux has a larger grip section, so I actually think the Penlux will be more comfortable for most people just because you get a nicer, larger grip section and the nib isn't quite so long. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. It's very similar in proportion to a Mont Blanc 149, and they do share the Masterpiece name, which is kind of interesting. Now, this model, the Snowflake, is limited to 388 pieces. This is number 249, and it says Penlux Grande Snowflake. So I believe the Masterpiece comes in 3 sizes, the Grande being the biggest. And overall, I think it's a really nice pen. You know, it is a cigar shape, similar to Mont Blanc, just fatter at each end, essentially. I like the matte finish on here. It is pretty nicely finished. I don't see like any rough edges on here. Even the underside of it looks really, really well done. Now, I did notice this was a display in the store, and there are some little marks that show up on the clip here. They're not too noticeable. Let's see if they show up on camera, but this is a finish that can definitely be marked. We do have a functional roller clip, which is quite nice and easy to use. The cap ring, I think, looks really quite good. It's high relief. We've got 2 sort of coin edges at the top of the bottom, and then it kind of pulls inward. It has a nice, real premium look to it. Now, I will say on the back here, you do notice some issues, I don't know, in the casting where it's not exactly perfect, but overall, the general aesthetic, I think it has a high quality appearance to it. And at the back here, we do have a ring in that same matte finish. And in terms of uncapping the pen, It's roughly 2 full turns to uncap it. It is a piston filler, and we can kind of see some of the mechanism, and we can see the ink in there. It holds a decent amount of ink. I think I measured around 1.4 milliliters. I could probably try to get a bit more, but very nice. And I like this snowflake finish. You get a translucent body, so you can see sort of the inner pieces of it, but it's not so distracting like a perfectly clear demonstrator. So it's very, very nice. In terms of the nib is a number 6 JoWo nib with their standard stamping, and then you can see Penlux engraving laser etched on there. You know, design wise, I think this looks pretty decent. I don't love laser etching, but I like this a bit better than just the non-stamped and standard laser etched nibs that we see on some other brands. So I think this looks good. Plastic feed. Now, these nibs are not threaded, or if they were threaded, they are glued in place. I do believe they are friction fit, so you could pull them out. I haven't tried that, but they're not threaded, so you won't be able to as easily swap in other JoWo nibs that you have, which is unfortunate. The piston mechanism does have quite a bit of metal in it, although I don't find it at all uncomfortable. This has a very solid feel. I would compare this to an Opus 88. Now the price for this is $240 for steel, and I believe it goes up to like $400 if you get a gold nib. This nib writes really, really nicely. I don't really see the need to go for gold, but if you wanted to, you certainly have that option, which is nice, especially if you find a pen that you just really love and you want to make it just that hair nicer, you can do that. Now, in terms of size and weight, if you have a 149, it's very, very similar to that. This is about 148 capped. Uncapped, looking at about 135. Posted, this does post very nicely and very comfortably. Looking at about 173. The grip section, it does taper quite a bit before flaring out. So right before the threads, looking at 13.9 and 11.9. It's a fat grip section. In terms of the body, I try to catch it right about the fattest point, 14.8. Now if we do the weight, looking at 33 grams pretty much. And then without the cap, 22.5. It has a solid feel to it. A very similar feel to like an Opus 88. It's turned from a solid rod, and you can feel that. It's not flimsy at all. Now compared to a Mont Blanc 149, this is a modern Mont Blanc 149, about 33 grams as well. So very similar weight and size. You know, this is an extremely comfortable pen. I think because this Penlux model has a larger grip section, I think it may be more comfortable for even more people than the 149. So that's really, really good. Now to compare it to some other pens, here it is with the 149, Lamy Vista, with a Faber-Castell Hexo, with an Aurora Optima, and with a Omas Paragon. So for sure, an oversized pen, really comfortable. And here you can see it with a variety of nibs. Obviously the number 9 on the 149 is quite a bit larger, but similar to an Omas Paragon nib in terms of size, standard number 6 JoWo. For the writing sample, I'm going to be using a Papermind Tomoe River notebook. For Blake's Broadcast viewers and subscribers, you can get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout. So this is the Penlux Masterpiece Grande Snowflake with I think this is a fine nib. Yeah, fine. And this is Waterman Serenity Blue. Try some fast writing. Yep, no performance issues. This has been a flawless writer for me. I've had No hard starts, no nothing. Leave it unused for a few days. Don't notice any issues with it. In terms of flexibility, it's pretty much a nail. You can get a little bit, but I mean, it's a stiff nib. Reverse writing, it's actually not bad. Touch of feedback, but not particularly scratchy. You don't gain too much from it, but you could do it if you want. The nib writes really nicely. I've had no performance issues. I don't know if Penlux tunes their nibs or not, as I've only experienced one of them, but this nib performance has been perfect. You know, it's not scratchy for a fine nib. It's quite a smooth and able performer. So what are my pros and cons for the Penlux Masterpiece Grande Snowflake fountain pen? Well, I think the big thing here is the looks. I think this is a really cool looking fountain pen. I like the high relief coin edge cap band. I like the roller clip. I like this snowflake material. I think it's really pretty. You get a little bit of translucency in there so you can see some of the mechanism, you can see the ink level, but it's not just like a pure clear demonstrator. So I think looks wise, this is really nice. The proportions are very good. They're very Mont Blanc 149 like, which is one of my favorite pens, so I really like that. It is a pretty capacitive piston filler, being that this is such a large size. The nib writes really nicely, and it's very comfortable. It posts really nicely. From a comfort perspective, this pen is exceptional. I also think it has a nice solid high quality feel to it, that it is individually numbered, and I like the engraving on here so I know what model it is and what number it is. Now, in terms of cons, the biggest one is, I think, the price. When you compare it to other Taiwanese pens, like Opus 88 is the one that I think seems the most similar to this. These pens are more expensive. Now, looks-wise, I prefer the look of this Masterpiece line. I think it looks more elegant. I like the proportions of it better, and I much prefer the piston filling system versus the eyedropper. But when it comes to just general build quality and fit and finish, they're very comparable. And, you know, the solid feeling of the materials is very similar. So for this, you know, you got to want the piston filler and you got to like the style for me to be like, okay, I want to recommend this over an Opus 88. Now with Opus 88, most of their nibs are JoWo like we have here. Some of them are Bach 250s, which is the big number 6 size Bach, and then they do some smaller ones. So there's more options for nibs in the Opus 88 lineup. Also, the nibs are threaded. Now, with the Penlux, this is the only Penlux that I've experienced, but these are not threaded nib units, or they probably were, but they were glued in. So you can probably pull out the nibs, you know, friction fit and change them. It's just not quite as convenient as a typical JoWo threaded nib unit. So those I would say are my main issues with it. Fit and finish is also, I would say, really just on the cap band. I noticed some imperfections there, and I think probably the mold that they were using, or the way that it was cast. Not exactly perfect, but overall, I think this is a very nice pen. Very enjoyable to use. Really nice writer. But that's pretty much it. Do you guys have this pen? Do you like this pen? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more fountain pen, paper, and ink videos, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and until next time.